Hi, welcome to the Heart of Neon YouTube channel. This week's upload, I'm discussing Jeff Minter. What does he do? Jeff makes highly stylized and very elaborate state-of-the-art games inspired by the arcade cabinet, the stand-up cabinet games of the late 70s and early 80s. And it's a little esoteric. It's a little hard to explain because they haven't really existed. People don't make them anymore. It's only in recent years that style of gaming has come back through the indie scene. So, it's sort of interesting in that, you know, I didn't get it for the film, but Jeff told me about how at one computer show, a young guy in his 20s came up to him and says, like, you know, I think your games are cool, but you know, I'm too old to play them now. And Jeff's like spluttering, like, what? You know, because the arcade games of the 80s, the 70s and 80s seem abstract and simple. People assume that the games are abstract and simple, and granted, some of them are. But that's not what Jeff does. That's not what fascinates about him. That's not what the games that he was inspired by were like. Well, let Jeff describe that to you for himself. Jeff Minter.
I think a lot of those early games are really very interesting to study because they kind of laid the foundations of a particular kind of game design. We're talking more arcade game design and story-based stuff. They're all very good examples of having a very minimal set of rules which create this feedback loop. And the very best games, the ones that have survived the test of time that people still play to this day, are the ones that had it most finely tuned, had it so that the experience of playing it felt best.
For me, the arcade was what video games are all about, and still are.
It's noticeable when I discuss arcade games with students or people I'm mentoring that they don't have an understanding of that because they don't really exist anymore.
What the 80s was to you is based on your own personal experience of it, really.
As a kid, I was an arcade junkie, so my parents, would drop me off the car. I'd often just end up in the arcade, in a Saturday morning when I was meant to be doing something else.
I think everybody's got their own favourite games from back then. Everybody's choice of games would be slightly different. Like, we used to go on holiday to North Wales, and there was the arcade in Barmouth where I learned to play Asteroids. There was the newsagent that had the battle zone, and there was another one which had a missile command, and there was a pub down the road where they always had some weird tabletop thing which you'd never heard of anywhere else. We used to walk down and play down there.
To be honest, back in Dublin, there was always a snooker hall which had a bunch of arcade games, and there was one, the Piero Club, it was famous in Dublin, and it was open 24 hours. As a kid, I remember spending almost the whole night there, like just playing arcade games when I was, 15, 16, I suppose. God love, my parents would have absolutely be mortified.
There's something timeless about something that's just fun and enjoyable and silly, as well as looking and sounding great, and it just makes it something that will continue to be playable forever, really. It's gonna continue to stay ageless in that sense, because anything about it that makes you look at it and think it's dated is also something that makes it intensely likable and something that's just intensely welcoming.
He's really, knowledgeable about this stuff. He's obviously exploring a niche, and he's just doing it in this very personalised way. That mix of old school and the trippy kind of visual thing, flashing lights, sweaty arcade thing, that's his sweet spot for me.